Ворап, дорогие друзья! Предлагаю вам познакомиться с Буддой. Кто знал, познакомиться поближе, кто не знал, узнает. Что это вообще за персонаж? Почему мы должны знать, кто это такой? Да так, создал хип-хоп танец. Всего-то. Когда мы говорим о хип-хоп культуре в целом, здесь грех не знать, кто такой Кул Хёрк, батька хип-хоп культуры, собственно. А когда мы говорим о хип-хоп танце, здесь грех не знать, кто такой Будда Стретч, батька хип-хоп танца. Как именно создавался хип-хоп танец, смотрим вот здесь. А здесь я выбрал интервью, которые касаются лично Будды. Немножко из детства, как он начал танцевать, о начале танцевальной карьеры, про работу с Майклом Джексоном будет, и немножко его мировоззрение, его отношение к танцу, к музыке, к культуре в целом. Комментировать я ничего не буду, видос и так приличный получился. Придется немножко поднапрячься и почитать субтитры. Уж извините, для озвучки я еще не созрел. Приятного просмотра.
Understand?
Okay, so when I was a kid growing up, there was a TV show called Soul Train. And when I was a youngster, I didn't watch much Soul Train, but my family did. And when you're a kid, you see everybody watching something, you run in, you watch. I'm seeing them dance. I do a little imitation dance, and then I break out. And as I got older, my grandmother, God bless the dead, just passed away. Love her to death. She used to watch Carol Burnett and Shields and Yarnell. And of course, if she watched it, she controlled the TV. It's her house. We had to watch it. So I grew up watching Carol Burnett, Shields and Yarnell, and imitating, Robert Shields and doing a robot. But not really into dance until I got, I went to a family function called a block party where they, block off the street and everybody comes out and cooks and you get to know your neighbors and you party. And so at this particular block party, I had a cousin from the South who came and, they had, they were playing music and these guys were popping. And I was like, oh, that's the dance from Soul Train. I recognized it, like, oh, that's what I saw on Soul Train. And so out of nowhere, my cousin jumps in the circle and he's popping. He's got the float and he has a cigarette trick and he has a little wave. And I'm like, now I grew up with him. He's, heavy set. He never danced. All of a sudden he's popping. He's doing a dance I saw on TV. And I'm like, if he could do it, come on. So that people can dance. Exactly. So I'm like, watching TV, I always, I could do the robot and other dances. But when I saw my cousin, it was like, damn, like, he's really good. I would have learned that dance, and that's what got me into dancing. I started with popping and breaking. I was in a crew called Grand Floor Wizards in Flatbush, Brooklyn. And that's how I got my start. I started with that, and then from there, branched off into hip-hop.
So this all happened just as I was entering the high school. So I started popping, then I met B-boys, and we saw flash dance and Star Wars and all that. We wanted to break and pop, and I didn't even know it was hip-hop yet, but that was the start of everything. To tell you the truth, when I started, I didn't know there was a scene. Two friends of mine, my first student, Prince D, my boy Danny, his brother was an MC and his brother's friend was a DJ, Professor Paul and Professor Pierre, two professors. And it's because of them that I actually know what hip hop is. I didn't know there was a scene. It was them who showed me that it's all connected, like the dance, the MC, the DJ, the graffiti artist, and it's called hip-hop.
I originally, I never planned to dance professionally. I never planned to be into hip-hop in any way, shape, or form. It just became all-encompassing. And originally, I wanted to be a pilot. I planned on, flying and eventually, going from being a pilot to being an astronaut. That was my thing. I was a Trekkie. So I was like, live long and prosper. And I wanted to go where no man has gone before. So, and then, once I got into hip hop, that kind of was like space is not the final frontier. This is it.
Hip hop is the final frontier.
Yeah. Mhm. The first job that I got, literally that was a job, was at a club called Union Square. And what happened was they originally had some poppers and breakers and stuff. They were supposed to come to the club and perform with a friend of mine. His name was Tron, and he had assembled a bunch of people to come perform at the club because the club promoters were ex-dancers. So they wanted to, you know, throw something on the stage. But when the, you know, other dancers, the breakers and the b-boys and the poppers came to the club, it was so rowdy and they were so, you know, they were intimidated. They didn't want to get on the stage because they felt like these people would not accept what they were doing. So basically, Tron went and he grabbed a couple of people that we used to dance with all the time. Now, mind you, Tron was a popper like me. He came from the Beat Street era first, and then we went into the hip hop era, and he made the transition from just popping or breaking into dancing hip hop. And so when they wouldn't perform, he grabbed a couple of our friends that we danced with all the time in the club, pulled them on stage, and they just randomly freestyle. So then the promoters were like, "We'll pay you guys to do this every week." And they were like, "Okay, but we're missing one person, me." I wasn't there. That night, I decided to go out with this girl, and you know.
That was a girl, isn't it?
Exactly. That's why we do this. So I didn't go to the club that night. So then the next day, I get a call, and they're like, "Yo, why you didn't come last night?" "Yo, they want us to dance here every week." And I'm like, "Dance where? On the stage?" So yeah. So we had a meeting that Monday at the club, and when they're explaining to me, they said, "Well, we're gonna pay you guys to perform every week. You can get in free drinks." And so I'm like, "You're going to pay me to come dance here every week. You're gonna pay me, and I get in free, and I get free drinks? You're gonna pay me to come to this place that I paid to get in. I don't gotta pay no more. You're gonna pay me to come." Hell yeah. So, you know, and then they were like, well, you know, they wanted to know why these guys needed me. And, you know, Tron and them said, well, he's gonna put the show together. He's the choreographer. Now, mind you, all of that time, I had never choreographed anything. You know, we just would dance together, and I would lead, and they would follow what I was doing, or we would feed off of each other, and then I would put the together, like we would feed off of each other's energy, but we never did any organized dancing. But they just knew that I was the one to put it all together. So I was just like, okay. And when we got there, we had our next show that Friday. We started rehearsing that Monday. By Friday, we had a whole show. I choreographed the whole show, and we got up there and we performed. We opened up for, who was it? What's his name? It's Grand Poobah before he was in Brand Nubian, Masters of Ceremony.
Okay.
And we opened up for them and a couple other groups, and you know, we performed and the crowd went crazy. And then every week after that, we put on a performance. We basically opened up the show for all of the rappers, and that's how I got to know all of the rappers. I get a phone call from their manager, "Oh, we need you to come to Columbus, South Carolina on this date, such and such, you're going on tour." And I was, okay. And I got on the plane and I went down there, and my first show with them, you know, we didn't have anything put together. I'm just on the stage, you know, and I'm just following what they're doing. I don't even remember the song they were performing, but Jalil was like, go off, go off. Now he meant go off the stage, but I thought go off. So I went to the front of the stage and started going crazy and dancing hard, and I ended with a split, and I came up and the crowd was like, ah! And then Cliff grabbed me and pulled off the stage. He was like, nigga, he said go off. Like, oh, go off the stage. I was like, I don't know. So then I'm just standing on the side like, but then they came back and they all gave me that. Like, damn, like, oh shit. And he's like, but you know, I may get off the stage, but okay, you know, cause I rocked it. And that's how I got to go on tour with Houdini, LL Cool J, Public Enemy, Eric B. and Rakim, Dougie Fresh, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Heavy D and the Boys, who else was on? Stetson Sonic, Big Daddy Kane, Roxanne Shante. We all were in one tour. Yeah. You know, it was the Def Jam tour.
Thank you very much.
What was it like working with Michael Jackson? That must have been amazing.
After the birth of my two daughters, the greatest experience of my life.
Is that right?
Yeah.
He's a regular person, just like me and you, except he's the most famous person on earth next to Jesus.
One of the things that you can't, normally when you teach someone, you teach them by count, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4. Michael, you have to teach by rhythm. He learned like a tap dancer.
And literally like that. He doesn't count. You can't teach Michael Jackson 5, 6, 7, 8. He's a musician. In music, 5, 6, 7, 8 doesn't exist. No. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. They're called bars. But even then, Michael doesn't count. Doesn't use numbers, he uses rhythm. So everything has to be in a rhythmic a beat for him to learn the step. So if I'm teaching him this step, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7, and 8, I can't do 1, 2, 3, and 4, because he looked at us like, and he was like, I don't count. And we were like, okay, what are we supposed to do? So he explained, show it to me in rhythm. So we're like, okay. Ba, 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 It's funny, but he said, ba, 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 One more time. Ba, ba, ba. And then the next time, it was like, okay, you ready? Ba, 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 And then you look at him like, seriously? Because that's how professional he is.
Can you give us a little bit of a sense of what he was like as a person?
The greatest thing that I could tell you about him, working with him, was he asked me more questions than I could answer.
Okay? When we started doing the video, he wanted to know how to do the step, why we did the step, when was the first time we did the step, why did we wear the clothes we were wearing when we did the step, what made us think of that step, what was the music that you came up that step with, where were you when you made up that step, and how did it feel when you made up that step, and if you didn't make up the step, how did it feel when you saw the guy who did make up the step? These are all the questions that I got asked in about 2 minutes. So imagine I'm sitting there facing the mirror, trying to show Michael Jackson, and he's asking me 1,000 questions. I'm being interrogated by Michael Jackson. All we needed was a flashlight. Yes. Who are you? Where did you get this stuff from? So that's how he goes about preparing what he's going to do. Nursery hat, and my friend Flex became a Michael Jackson addict. He had the hat, he had the hair, he had the gloves, he had every jacket, he had the socks and the penny loafers. He had it all. He had every nuance and movement that Michael did. He knew all of the songs on the album. And so one day we're out practicing, and he's practicing being Michael Jackson, I'm practicing popping. And my father happens to come up on us, and he's watching him and me, and we're listening to MJ. We were I think we were popping to Billie Jean. At least I was. And he comes to me and he says, so, you guys like Michael Jackson? I said, yeah. He said, your boy loves Michael Jackson. I said, yeah. He said, you like Michael too? I said, yeah. He said, you want to be like Michael Jackson? I said, yeah. I said, no, you don't. And I looked at him strange, and he said, you don't want to be like anybody. You want to be better than Michael Jackson. And I was about 15 at the time, and I thought my father was crazy. Because, like, I couldn't fathom what he was talking about. But about less than a decade later, I was in Los Angeles in a studio like this, and I called my dad. I said, Pop, remember when you back when I started, and it was me and Dexter practicing, and you asked me if I wanted to be like Michael Jackson? And he said, yeah. And I said, what did you tell me? And he said, I told you want to be better than Michael Jackson. I said, okay, I'm teaching Michael Jackson right now.
Because it's all based on the music. The music is the glue that brings everything together. You know, hip hop is a culture, it's not a dance. It's a culture. Spoken word, music, art, and dance. Spoken word being rhythm and poetry, what we call rap. Art being graffiti. The music being provided by the DJ. That's the DJ's job, to make you do what? Dance. The DJ brings everybody together in one house, in one building. That's what hip hop is. So, that's what you need to keep in mind when you think of hip hop. It's a culture.
The difference now, I think, as opposed to then, when you got into hip hop, you got into the culture. Like, I didn't just dance. I tagged, you had to have your tag, I did graph, I learned how to DJ, I did a little MC. You did hip hop. It wasn't, you did one thing, you did a little bit of everything. You tried it because everybody was doing a little bit of everything. So, you know, and then at that time, you know, it was all brand new. I mean, they had just started calling it hip hop, you know, and it was, you know, it was just a different way of being at the time. To me now, to see how many people are into the culture but don't really know the culture is amazing to me, because when we came up, it was like, it wasn't this one thing. Like, you didn't just, you know, we didn't just dance. We did a little, you did every aspect of the culture, you know, and it's amazing to me now to see how far it's come.
So basically the culture was your life.
Yeah, I mean,
There's too much separation. People want you to think that everything should be in this nice little box. Popping is here, locking is here, b-boying is here, hip-hop, whacking. Okay, are you a popper? Go in this box. Are you a b-boy? Go in that box. But you're forgetting popping, b-boying, locking, hip-hop, whacking, whatever you call it. Before it's those things, it's one thing: dance. Music and dance, hip-hop in general, is the opposite of politics. Politics separates. Politics tells you everything is this, everything is in a box, and you get to pick A, B, C, or D. Music removes the box and shows you the cipher and says it's all one thing, you know, and you decide how you use this one thing. You can break it down into parts, but it's one thing. It's not, you know, what's in the box. Politics separates people. Music and dance brings people together. Music allows you to express yourself across all boundaries. Music and dance, rather, across all boundaries, cultures, languages, because music is universal. Everyone understands that when the beat drop, you know, we all hear. I don't know what you're saying, but I know what you're saying because we're here. We can have this conversation, you know, spiritually and physically, not verbally. And for me, that means more than anything else. Now, rapping existed before hip hop. Graffiti existed before hip hop. DJing existed before hip hop. You know, the core of breaking existed before hip hop. It's hip hop that brought all of these things together. And that still holds true to this day. You're bringing different people from different cultures, different backgrounds, all under one banner when the beat drop. When the beat drop, we're no longer black, white, Puerto Rican, Asian, you know, Indian, Filipino, all of that nonsense is out. We are one, you know, we are one nation under the group.
So the real 4 elements: peace, unity, love, having fun. If you're not having fun, why are you doing this?